Just thought I'd do a really quick tipping tip since Christmas still isn't here, but we'll be here, I guess, actually in a couple days now. Oh man, I got the hiccups. Just got a tip today from one of the customers, not one, but a group of the customers, and started thinking, how certain jobs and certain places give tips and others don't. My company, I don't know if you saw the other day, they gave like a bonus and a holiday fund, and then they also gave money for recognition, which I thought was awesome. I think it's nice to be recognized when you do a good job somewhere, but when they back it up with cash, that's even better. But anyhow, the tip though that people were giving is just like a little bonus, a little holiday gift that some customers give. And I thought it was interesting that even though I'm a janitor and stuff at this place, I get paid to work as a janitor. I get the hiccups. Some of the clients actually give tips, which I'm like, well, that's nice. That's very kind of them to do that. But I was thinking about other jobs, and thought I would pass some tips along for those of you who might not know how it kind of works, at least how it worked when I was there. Some people give tips for the mailman during the holidays, because people get packages and mail and things like that. And the mailmen really do, and women, they do work really hard. Having worked as a CCI, I can attest to that. What is it, through rain, sunshine or snow, even blizzards and hurricanes in Florida, the mailman is out there trying to deliver your mail. So anyhow, what happened when I was a mailman was I was what was known as a CCA. That's a city carrier assistant. So even though you're working like full time, you're not official yet. You're on like probation for like basically it's a waiting queue for the older mailmen, the regulars, to retire, and then they move the people in the CCA up the ranks, and then you become a regular. But while you're a CCA, you don't have your own route. They basically stick you on all the routes, a set number of routes. Like usually when you're at a specific post office, they'll give you about 5 or 6 routes that you got to do, and they rotate them. You're like the substitute mailman for those routes. Now, people normally don't tip the mailman until the holidays, because they start thinking, wow, man, it was nice to get their Christmas package or whatever. Tips for the mailman work is actually when you tip on that mail route, regardless of who's delivering it, they will set aside that money for the person who runs the route, the regular on that route. And those mailmen, the regular mailmen, they can make a lot of money on the Christmas holidays. Like some of them get tips in excess when you consider all their entire route, more than $2,000 in tips. But that's like a one-time thing. They don't get that all year. They only get it at Christmas, which I think is well deserved. But a group that sometimes gets left out are the CCAs. And what happens is the regulars, a lot of times, they have so much accrued time on their leave that they end up taking leave for I was a CCA, and during Christmas when they would give me money or whatever, for the tip, I would take the money, but it's not for me. They might not know that, but they give me that money, even though they've been seeing me deliver there for 6 months or whatever. I'm not the regular, but I've been doing their mail regularly. They'll leave that tip, thinking I'm getting it, but it doesn't go to me actually. I take it and I give it to the route owner, the main mailman. But what was interesting was there was a lady who knew, I guess she knows how it works, because I went to this one apartment complex and there was this older lady. And she did not leave. Sometimes they leave the tip in an envelope and leave it there for the mailman to pick up. She wanted to make sure that didn't happen, because if she did that, I would be giving it to the mailman, the regular, even though he hadn't been doing that route for a year. I'd been doing it. So she came outside specifically waiting for me, because you tend to know when your mailman shows up. And then she handed me the envelope and said, "This is for you." And I said, "Okay, I'll put it on." And she said, "No," she said, "This is for you specifically." Not for the mailman, not for the regular. So she gave it specifically for me, and in that case, I could take it. And you're like, well, don't they get the share of the money that they collect or whatever if it's a tip for the mailman? It depends on the carrier. Like there was this one route, I delivered like $800 in tips to him on that one day. I went to pick up, do his mail and stuff, and he didn't give me anything. And I'd been doing his route for like 3 months. So, I gave him the $800. I didn't get anything. So it depends on the mailman who owns the route, the regular on that route. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll take the money, like they'll get $800, and they might take $100 out and give it to the CCA or something. So that, just so you know how that works with the mail system. Those people you see delivering on Sunday specifically are CCAs. They're not the regulars. The CCA is like a what they call city carrier assistants, or sometimes a rural route assistants. They're like assistant mailmen, and they get the benefits and stuff like that, but they don't have like a regular route. They actually, like I said, do about 6 routes depending on where they're stationed. I had like about 40 or 50 routes, which is why I went. It's a long story, but they put me all over the whole. Gosh, I covered like almost half of Florida, so I know the roads intimately, because they would put me to different post office, and then I would, then you get assigned to the regular, like you get 6 routes there, and then 6 routes at this other post office, and 6 routes. It all adds up. I had like about 60 routes. I would get confused too, because for some reason cities like to name streets the same. I don't know, but that's it for the mailman. If you want to make sure that your particular mailman, if it's a CCA, gets it, you got to catch him in person and tell him it's specifically for him or her. Otherwise, it's going to the regular, even though you might have not seen the regular for a year, because that's how they do it. Also, for people who do service industries like waitresses and stuff like that, when you give them a tip, typically in most places, they don't get to pocket that tip. It goes into like a jar, and it gets split with everybody, including some waitress or waiters who might not have been that good. I think that if you tell that waiter or that waitress specifically, this is for you only, okay, then they might be allowed to pocket it. But their policy normally is when you put a tip out there, they split it. So even a bad waiter or a waitress will actually get some of that money. But if it's a specific person that you're trying to tip, I think if you tell them, I don't know if it works that way for the waiters. Somebody can clarify who's a waiter or waitress. But I think if you tell them specifically, this is for you, nobody else, you, then I think they can pocket it. Teachers sometimes get tips on the holidays. You cannot tip a teacher. Teachers cannot, well, you could try to tip a teacher, but legally, most teachers are not allowed to take tips. So I would have parents that would try to give me tips for some reason, on the Christmas holidays. I don't know what you tipping a teacher. To me, that's kind of weird, but they would try to tip me, and I would tell them always. They would come up to me, with an envelope with money or whatever in it, or even a gift card. You can't even tip like a gift card. I would tell them I can't accept that. I can't accept anything that's like cash or it has cash value like that. So what I tell them is, if you want to tip me, what you should do with that money is maybe take your kid out to McDonald's or something. So that for me is as a teacher, I would rather them spend the money that they were going to give to me personally towards their kid. Because I try to teach their kid that if they do nice stuff with their parents or for their parents, that maybe sometimes nice things will happen when their parents can afford it. So if their parent is trying to tip me, I generally would try to defer it towards the kid. What else? I suppose, in some industries, it's not standard to tip, but I don't think it would hurt to offer, I don't think it would hurt to offer anyone a tip. And especially right now during the COVID situation, when I eat out, I typically will tip not by percentage, but by how much I think would actually be beneficial to them. So if you calculate percentage, sometimes it's as high as 50 to 80%, sometimes 100%. You're like, well, you're tipping as much as the food. Yeah, if the food was cheap. If the food was $5 and I thought service was good, and I'm looking at their business and they're not getting many customers, I might give them $10, $5 for the sandwich and $5 for a tip. So don't be saying, well, you got to do 15%. You got to do, those are just recommendations. You tip whatever you feel they're worth. And if you enjoy eating out, especially during a time like COVID, which, is kind of risking it a little bit. it's kind of risky to eat at a restaurant because, there's a lot of people there typically. But I try to go like, well, some tips from me for you. If you like to eat out at like the Chinese buffets or whatever, go as soon as they open. Like as soon as they open for lunch or whatever. Hopefully go to the ones that practice social distancing. They have the whole mask mandate and they make you wear the plastic glove, and they don't fill up the whole restaurant. They spread everybody apart. The whole restaurant's used and everybody's all spread out. That might help to reduce it also. But the big tip for going there to try to avoid people is go right when they open. So I've gone to like there's a Makata, I think it's Makita or Makata in Jensen Beach, which is like a really popular Chinese buffet. It's really good. They have like squid over there, which is hard to find nowadays at a restaurant. But I would go there right when they open, and there might be like 5 different sets of people there. So that's my big tip to eat out, like not just at that restaurant, but at any restaurant. If you go there right when they open, you will get in there when it's empty. So the food hasn't had people coughing all over it. And it's empty. So you can eat, in relative safety. I mean, as safe as you can be. So those are my tips for you. AA Angus, I went to 2 restaurants since this thing, both times outside. That's also a very good tip. If they go outside and they put those plastic tents to surround you, it's really not outside. But if you're really outside where the air's blowing and stuff, it's a little bit safer. One of the problems with restaurants that people don't consider is that the air that you breathe, even though if you're social distance, it gets recirculated back into the air conditioning. And it can actually blow out and spread throughout the whole thing. So anytime you go out into a confined space, whether it be a restaurant, a theater, or anything like that, and you're breathing air conditioning, even though everyone might be distanced, you're still potentially getting it, spreading it or receiving it because the air is going through the system and blowing everywhere. So eating outside, like AA Angry says, is probably one of the best tips for eating out, because then your air blows away to other people. No. The air just blows and it spreads out, and hopefully, it's less concentrated and has less impact of somebody actually getting it or you getting it from somebody else. So eating out is a good thing. I do think that, like some people think that I'm pro shutting things down. I'm not pro shutting things down. I think that some things should be shut down. Like, I think bars, because people tend to lose their inhibition and take off their mask and start intermingling, because that's what bars are for. And during a situation like COVID, I think those are like super spreader areas. But like a restaurant or something, especially those with outdoor eating, I think are fairly safe as long as you, the staff and you and everybody else there practices as safe as possible. Because I do believe it's important to try to keep things open and going as much as possible, but with the safety in place. Because when you shut everything down, not only is it bad for the economy and those people's personal lives, their job is on the line. It's bad psychologically. I think, people being confined, you're seeing some of the behavior you're seeing now and some of the rises because people are losing it. They've had enough. So I think it's kind of important to keep things open, but I think it's very important to try to mandate, like mask wearing and things like that, just to give people a little bit of safety, even though going out is a risk. The safest thing is not to go out, but then psychologically, that might not be the safest solution, because psychologically that starts to mess you up. People are social. People need to get out. And definitely they shouldn't be shutting down like beaches and parks and stuff. But so that would be my tip for government. Don't shut down public places like the beach or the parks and outdoors where people have to go to de-stress, but at the same time, if keeping the businesses and stuff open, I think it's very important for a livelihood, or if you're not going to keep the businesses open and whatnot, then the government needs to take over and start delivering food and everything else for people. People need it, I'm going to go ahead and sign out, but want to thank you all for joining me. My last tip, I think today is the 22nd. The Christmas star, the Star of Bethlehem, may still be, I think it is still visible, but starting to split apart again. So the 21st is when they came the closest they're going to get. And I actually did see it. It doesn't look to the naked eye, it doesn't look as fabulous as they make it out to, but you can see it. You can definitely see it, and it's very bright. I had to look from my location to the west south. I don't say southwest because originally I was looking southwest and I saw nothing. But somebody pointed it out, and it was mostly west, slightly south. And it occurs right after sunset, like right when it goes dark. So make sure you get out there right when the sun goes down and look to the west, then start to scan south. You're not looking high. You're looking kind of 15, 20 degrees into the sky, maybe 15, 20. And I think what they say is because of the rotation and stuff, it starts to go down. So the longer you wait, the less chance you have of seeing it because it'll be lower and lower on the horizon. Now, sadly for this area, it seemed like every single day the past week that it was visible was super cloudy. But I was actually able to get out there and see it through patches of cloud last night. I went out with my son, and we didn't go anywhere. We just went out, to look in the yard or where we were parked or whatever, and we could see it. We could see it through the clouds. So that's how bright it was. But yeah, so make sure you catch it. It's a once in a lifetime event. I think the next one's not going to occur for at least 80 more years, and it won't be this close. So get out there, enjoy the Christmas star, your little Christmas present from nature, from God, from whatever you believe. But it is happening, and it is something worth seeing. Hey, Brandon, good to see you on here. And Young, good to see you. AA Angry, George, Cindy. I'm going to sign out. So until next time, everyone, Sawasdee Krap. Take care. God bless you all. Please stay safe. Bye-bye now.